Go Pack, go the fuck home.
Love. Fire in end zone. Knocked away. And it's in. Down. Blitz is coming. Purdy has a block. Floating one downfield for Kittle. He's got it. Touchdown, San Francisco. It's Kittle. He's got a first down. George Kittle breaks the tackle. They get it off. McCaffrey, right side, big seam. Cut. 30. McCaffrey. Touchdown, San Francisco. And it's picked off. Dre Greenlaw.
When I say bang bang, y'all say not again. Bang bang, not again.
Whoo, baby. Hell of a game. A little bit too close for comfort, but my God, the Niners somehow pulled it out in the divisional round against the Green Bay Packers, which did numbers, by the way, on the viewership side. Two things I want to talk about today. Quick recap of that game, some key takeaways that need to be discussed as we await the NFC Championship game against the Detroit Lions. And two, what can we expect from the Detroit Lions, the gritty team that we all keep hearing about, what to expect, where the advantage is in the opportunity for the Lions going against the 49ers, and where the advantage lies for the 49ers. So with that being said, let's get into it, y'all. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Ryan Tigey, back in action. Okay, so big game. The Niners, my God, they barely pulled it off. When we take a look at the divisional round, 49ers hosting the Green Bay Packers, the Niners ended up winning 24-21 in a barn burner. A little too close for comfort, but thank God they pulled it off, because I would have been devastated, as I know probably many of you would as well. So with the Niners barely edging out the Green Bay Packers, it felt just from the jump like a weird game. I would say for probably 90% of the game, it felt like Green Bay was going to win and that they were just playing better as a unit, offense, defense, special teams. When you go back and rewatch the game like I have, and you could see it just as the game was progressing, the Packers, they outplayed the Niners. With that being said, their superstar quarterback, everybody loves Jordan Love. He was the one that made rookie mistakes, though he's not a rookie, and which cost them the game ultimately. So the first thing, as it relates to the recap of that divisional round playoff game, first thing I want to talk about, defense, specifically the defensive line. Where the fuck was the defensive line at? The Packers came in with a very obvious game plan. Run the ball, control the clock, which they did so almost to a T by having very long drives, multiple long drives where the 49ers couldn't get off the field. And a big component of that was our defensive line, or the lack of our defensive line getting sacks, causing pressures, stopping the run, being stout as they historically have been. And Aaron Jones, as I said in my other videos, a really good back. But the 49ers were on a 51-game streak of not allowing the opposing team's running back to gain over 100 yards. That was the longest in the NFL, and obviously with this last game, that was broken. Aaron Jones had 18 attempts for a $108. So what they were doing was working, and our defensive line, where we put all the investment capital, really seemed to be MIA that game for at least the most part of the game, when they consistently had 7-minute, 8-minute, 9-minute drives going, just inching their way down the field, controlling the clock and keeping our offense on the sidelines. One thing I thought was interesting was a comment Bosa made following that game about the Packers offense. Listen to what he had to say.
You're having some of those.
You know, it's tough. It's good coaching. I think a lot of the plays they ran were kind of saved for us, not saved for us, but new. not on tape. And you're playing really good teams this time of year, but we definitely need to hone in on the details and improve.
So very interesting to hear, but not surprising that the Packers, what they had previously shown up on tape, they came out with different formations, different plays that they didn't see in film, and it clearly worked. I will say, got to give credit when credit is due to the Green Bay Packers offensive line. They did really good against Dallas by not allowing any sacks, only a few pressures, and they repeated that with the 49ers, holding that defensive line to really a lackluster type game. Really, when you look at it, the only person, to no one's surprise, unlike Micah Parsons, our superstar, Nick Bosa, he was the only one on that defensive line that was applying pressure the most to Jordan Love to get him to throw the ball sooner than he wanted. Nick Bosa, I think, ended with 5 pressures, and we are going to need him so much against Detroit, which we'll get into here in a little bit. This isn't a hot take or something that should be controversial. Our defensive line is not as good as previous years. We have a lot of big name players who make a shit ton of money, but it's just clear as day, especially when you compare it to our last Super Bowl run when they actually went to the Super Bowl in 2019 with Buckner leading that group, who's now obviously with the Indianapolis Colts. But we have a lot of big name players, which I think gets them a lot of hype surrounding them, and they should be just a force to reckon with and be dominant, but they just haven't been. And it's not good enough, and they need to step it up, and they need to step it up quickly because this Sunday is approaching fast, and we're going to need those dogs to feast. And of course, naturally, with the Packers being successful in the run, not being behind how we normally like to play, we normally like to get a lead early. So then it causes the other offense to throw the ball. And then that's when our D-line pins their ears back and goes attacks because they know they're going to be throwing the football. So we obviously didn't get any of that this past game. Hopefully they watch the film, understand what happened, which I'm sure they do, and make corrections because we got a big one this Sunday against Detroit. So now let's talk about the 49ers secondary, specifically the DBs. That was not a good showing. It was ugly, and it was ugly often. Outside of Mooney Ward's pass breakup in the end zone at the beginning of the game, which was unbelievable, the other side of the field got exposed. Specifically, Avery Thomas. Avery Thomas, we all know he had 2 massive PIs, one that went for 41 yards, and I was seriously surprised that the Packers were not just going to his side every single time they threw the ball. His coverage was not sticky. And of course, in the critical moments where it's 3rd and long, if they chuck the ball up like they did I think it was a corner route in the end zone, he got a PI, and then, or it wasn't in the end zone, but it was short of the end zone, but they were approaching the red zone. He got a PI flagged for that. And then obviously the 3rd and long, and he got flagged for a massive PI for that one too. So not good. I'm really hoping that, Avery Thomas, we've seen him make plays in other games, but sometimes light's too bright. The receivers are too good. The teams that we're playing are too well coached, too schemed up. We cannot afford for him to have a game like that this week against the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions have better receivers than the Packers. And if he struggled like that at home, it is a cause for major concern. And it's something I pray that they either change it. I like Demo on the outside. I know he has to obviously play at nickel, but in an ideal world for me, you have Demo on the outside and then obviously Travarius Ward on the other side. But that's not always something we can do with injuries. And Demo is unbelievable wherever he's at, in nickel or on the outside. But we cannot afford to let Avery Thomas. My guess, if he is the starting corner for this Detroit game, he will have a very short leash. And if he makes a boneheaded, massive, stupid play like he did in Detroit, he will get out and he'll get moved out quickly. And then they can rearrange the secondary there. And then another thing I noticed specifically about the secondary, one, why were so many of them slipping? I don't know if it's new grass that they put in, but it's home field advantage. They should know how the field is going to be and if they need to put on other cleats. stating the obvious here, but I just saw too many slips. It was either that in combination of some confusion and missed assignments in the back end, specifically when we saw that touchdown by Melton in the third quarter when he was wide ass open, like wide ass open. Basically, all the Packers did, it wasn't a complicated play. They ran a fake bubble screen to the wide receiver to the right-hand side, and the slot receiver basically ran like a skinny wheel. And one thing I noticed about that play, depending on what coverage they were in, Ward and Flanagan Fowles both attacked the fake screen to the wide receiver on the outside. And when that slot receiver, Melton, took off down the field, Gibson was in the middle. He was getting occupied by a tight end doing a deep over on the backside. So he was occupied. And then when he noticed Melton was literally no one within 15 yards of him, he then slipped, and it was an easy touchdown, way too easy. And I only bring this up because I don't know if that was a missed assignment, because clearly I don't think Flanagan Fowles and Charvarius Ward should both be attacking the outside wide receiver on a wide receiver screen, especially when it was a fake, and then letting the inside guy, the slot receiver, do a skinny wheel with zero interruption. It was the easiest touchdown I've seen in quite some time. So maybe credit to Matt LaFleur scheming that up, but I definitely think that was a missed assignment. And of course, it didn't help that Gip couldn't even get there in time because, again, we saw another slip. So they got to figure that out. Thankfully, conditions this week should be sunny, clear, and crisp. So with all that being said, the defense, they still did it. They made enough plays in crucial moments to allow the Niners to get the victory, to get our offense on the field. And of course, the three things that come to mind there are the 2 red zone stops that they did. So they allowed 6 points by 2 field goals versus 14 points by 2 touchdowns, which was absolutely massive and game-changing. And then, of course, the one that sticks out to me the most, the Packers were on the 14-yard line, heading in, driving, approaching the red zone, and it was 4th and 1, tried the brotherly shove, and they got stopped. Regardless of the spot, it could have gone either way, truly. I think it was a good call, obviously, but that was a huge moment in the game to give up 0 points and get the ball back to our offense, which we went down and put up points on the board from that. And then, of course, big play Dre, 2 picks. They did enough to get it done. And it's great because we have too many dudes on that side of the ball to allow another team like the Packers, like Detroit, to win that ball game when we have veteran all-pro studs littered all on the defensive side of the ball. Okay, let's pivot to coaching. There is a lot of attention that was put on to the coaching. I think it is safe to say in that game, Matt LaFleur outcoached Kyle Shanahan. Just like players, coaches can have bad games too. But then we also saw some old Kyle Shanahan habits that I know a lot of people don't like, and he gets a lot of criticism for. The first one, obviously, was the game management of ending the second half right before half was over. He wasn't using his timeouts. And even though he denies that he was calling plays to try and score, from everybody else, including myself, it felt like he was playing to kick a field goal, and it was going to be a long field goal at that. So that is something that we saw the conservative Kyle come back out. Again, he disagrees with it, but I think anybody with 2 eyes can see that's really what was going on. He was not confident in the defense at that point in the game because they were driving the ball so well that he wanted to make sure Green Bay did not get the ball back. And ultimately, with doing so, calling conservative plays to kick a field goal to then end the half that way. And we all know when we tried to accomplish that, Jake Moody's kick gets blocked. You could see that almost coming from a mile away. That was easily predictable, in my opinion. The second thing about Kyle is with Deebo Samuel, getting injured so early in that game, it was obvious that they had a massive game plan built around Deebo Samuel, which why wouldn't you? Deebo is an unbelievable player. He's a freak show. I love everything about Deebo. But when he gets hurt, another criticism that I think is valid for Kyle is he will not get away from the game plan he came up. He won't do it. He doesn't have the ability to really pivot off of his game plan that he spent probably an ungodly amount of hours prepping for to then go another direction because one of the key guys that you had a lot of design plays for gets hurt, and it showed on the field. Obviously, the Juan Jennings handoff, which Kyle said that was just a mistake. He forgot to mention in the play call to Brock to say something different. He forgot about that. Okay, that happens. But he just didn't seem in rhythm. His play calls did not seem in rhythm, and you didn't see his historical or typical scheme of players catching the ball wide ass open like he did on Green Bay. You just didn't see any of that this game. And so that's something I have all the confidence in the world in Shanny that this will not happen again coming up in the biggest game of the year against Detroit. And the third thing I noticed when we look at the coaching, I found it extremely interesting that Kyle came out throwing the ball. One of Green Bay's weaknesses was their run defense. Now, their defense has been playing a lot better over the past couple of weeks, but to see a quarterback who's clearly not comfortable throwing the ball in the rain, you can clearly see the quarterback is having trouble, whether he's not seeing the field the same way, if he's struggling with accuracy, whatever it is. The fact that you have an all-pro MVP, Christian McCaffrey, I thought it was 100% certain that we were just going to run the rock, feed CMC all day, and he just didn't do that. So I found that really weird and un-Kyle-like, considering we're a run-first offense, and then you get all the passes off the play action once the run game gets going. So that was another interesting, kind of uncharacteristic Kyle Shanahan move. Okay, now the hottest topic of them all, Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy did enough to win the game. That much is clear. But I think it is without question, he struggles throwing the ball in the rain. And I know a lot of people bring up Cleveland. And then, of course, now this game, we've seen it multiple times where it's raining. He has a hard time, whether it's gripping the ball, accuracy, it could be a multitude of things. He is not at his best, not even remotely near at his best when he's playing in the rain. Of course, we all saw he came out with the glove and then he took the glove off. And it was obvious to me that the rain affected him all game. Accuracy was an issue. And then he also wasn't seeing the field as he normally does. He is a very quick processor, which allows him to get the ball out quick, anticipation, all that kind of shit. He was struggling all game. And it could have been a combination of just having trouble gripping the ball and not seeing the field well. Again, that happens, but it was just really concerning throughout the game when it's like, holy shit, this is do or die. When are we going to start to see him get into form? When is he going to get into form? When is he going to get into form? And we just didn't see that. For quite some time, we would see little snippets of it throughout the game where he would make a nice, decisive pass, drop it in a bucket, but it was very sporadic until the final drive, the game on the line. We need points, down by 4. What does Brock Purdy do? He showed the fuck up. I have been hearing so much media attention about Brock. All the naysayers have come out of the woodwork to talk their shit and reconfirm their initial opinion about him not being the guy. But then yet they're saying that after this game, and the counter argument, which should mitigate all the stupidity that comes out of these fucking pundits, the final drive, 6 minutes left for your season. What did he do? He sacked up and made all the throws and all the plays required to have the Niners get a touchdown, which is ultimately the winning drive. So let's talk about that drive a little bit. 6 minutes and 18 seconds remaining in the game. Fourth quarter, down by 4 points. It was 21-17. We went 12 plays for 69 yards, took 5 minutes off the clock in doing so, and scored a touchdown. Now, there probably had to be a little adversity. There was. Kittle made an uncharacteristic drop, which was huge on second down. It would have moved the chains. Brock Purdy could have easily been rattled by that. Again, Doesn't happen often with Kittle. So what does he do? He laces in a dart to Brandon Ayuk on third down, who was plastered by Nixon, their cornerback, and made an unbelievable contested catch. But it all started with Mr. Purdy himself. Literally, when you go back and watch that, it is truly unbelievable the dart that Purdy threw and delivered to BA. BA's catch, just as impressive, without question, but holy shit, you couldn't have thrown that any better. And then, of course, later on in that drive, what happens? Purdy hits Chris Conley. Chris Conley has had 3 catches all year, and Purdy hits him on a beautiful sideline shot for 17 yards, again, to move the chains. And then, of course, CMC finishes the job off like he always does with a touchdown and had unbelievable blocks by the offensive line. It was a one-on-one, one man to beat. Christian McCaffrey, broken arm tackle, get the fuck off me. Like it was nobody's business, into the end zone. So I think what I'm trying to say here is Purdy provides ample ammunition for all the people who love him and all the people who hate him following that game. And when you hear these national pundits and just the extreme hate, I once again am flustered with why the fuck people are rooting so hard for Purdy to fail. Guys like Ryan Clark, who said this.
I'm about to make a confession. The single hardest thing I had to do this year was act like Brock Purdy deserved to be in the conversations with the other people we're mentioning in that tweet. Because he was playing extremely well and operating in that offense and distributing the ball to Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, we had to continue to include him in conversations with the Lamar Jacksons. We had to continue to include him in conversations with the Josh Allen. Those things are not alike. Brock Purdy is a fine player. Brock Purdy can operate in Kyle Shanahan's offense at an extremely efficient level. Brock Purdy doesn't raise the level of play of anyone around him. And so when you talk about Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, the people around them benefit from having those sorts of players at the quarterback position. Brock Purdy benefits from having the sort of players he has at the skill positions around him. And so when we look at that game against the Green Bay Packers, even with Jordan Love throwing an inopportune, inexplicable interception to end the game, I was sitting there watching them going, man, the NFL world should be excited that Jordan Love doesn't play for the San Francisco 49ers. And we are starting, at least in my opinion, to get into the realm the San Francisco 49ers used to be with Jimmy Garoppolo, where it was, with Kyle Shanahan calling plays, we could be really good. With the players around him, we could be really good. But can our quarterback take us to the next level? And now that it's getting down to the critical football moments, to the moments that turn good players into legends, that turn good teams into teams we never forget, you're starting to see, you don't take Brock Purdy over Jared Goff right now. And you for sure don't take Brock Purdy over the 2 dudes on the other side in the AFC. So if you're the San Francisco 49ers, you're thinking to yourself right now, this team that we were starting to run through our quarterback better run through Uncle Shannon's nephew, Christian McCaffrey. Because if it doesn't, they're going to find themselves at home again without a ring.
All that does to me is that proves that's why those types of shows suck balls, dude. So what, were you forced to have an opinion that you didn't really agree with to say how good Purdy is playing? Because that's the fucking facts. But what that is indicating is that he had to pick a side, and it was the side he didn't agree with, but he had to talk about it because that's what those debate shows do. They have to have insane takes, illogical takes. And so that is why I can't stand those fucking shows. Brock Purdy in his second year, people don't ever mention that. Everyone's talking about, oh my God, Jordan Love, unbelievable. He's the next guy. He's going to be the highest paid quarterback this offseason. Dude, Brock Purdy is in his second year. What is it with Brock Purdy? Is he because he looks like a normal dude? Like, I just don't get it. Is it last pick of the draft? Really? Whatever it is, maybe he doesn't have the prototypical body of a superstar quarterback. It's all fucking stupid. It's all hearsay. And that is why I hate those shows. With that Green Bay game, it confirms the sides of both. If you hate him, he did all this. If you love him, he still did this. And the reality is, and the fact is, both can be true, except when people on debate shows say ridiculous shit, proving their show isn't really that valuable to be watching when you have to take a side, it sounds like. And it's a side you actually didn't agree with, but yet you're on TV fighting as if you did agree with it. So all that type is stupid. And if I remember correctly, wasn't it Brock Purdy who led the entire NFL in Pro Bowl votes by fans? So again, I'm confused on the internet, on TV, why I'm just seeing so much Brock Purdy hate when the guy's in his second year and has been playing unfucking believable. And just because he didn't have the best game, there you just see the flow of hate coming down on him. And you know what? Good, because he's hearing all that. Deebo Samuel's taking note of that and responded. BA's taking note of that and responded. Just add fuel to the fire, haters. To wrap up that game, 2 shout outs. Want to give MVP on the offensive side of the ball, Juan Jennings, without question. His blocking downfield, his incredible crucial catches were so fun to watch. I'm so glad that he was back. It was massive that he came back, especially with Deebo going out. And then, of course, on the defensive side of the ball, big play, Dre Greenlaw, flying around, 6 tackles, 2 interceptions. Unbelievable that the Niners got that job done. And the big picture, for the 4th time in 5 years, the 49ers are going to the NFC Championship game. This is their 3rd NFC Championship game in a row. So regardless of what people are saying out there, the Niners are a squad. We got dogs all over the field, and it's about to be a get right, get back game coming up this Sunday when Detroit shows up. Okay, let's talk about Detroit NFC Championship game coming to Levi's to play the 49ers. I believe the last time these two teams played was in 2021. The 49ers won that game, and Deebo Samuel went apeshit that game. The 49ers, they opened as 7-point favorites. I believe it's maybe come down to 6.5 points, depending on what sports book, but I know it started out at 7, which means something. Doesn't mean that much when you take a look. We were 10-point favorites against Green Bay, but nonetheless, 7 points favorites. I think it's safe to say the 49ers, they're the better team. I think the biggest thing that we have going for us to win this game is we're playing Jared Goff. Jared Goff has been playing good, but the 49ers know him, and they know him better than any other team he's faced all this year. They had to face him 2 times a year, every year when he was at the Rams, and it works to a massive advantage that he isn't a mobile guy. Those are the quarterbacks our defense dominates, is when the quarterback isn't mobile. Now, he's accurate. He can throw and lace in the ball in spots that not many people can. He's got a strong arm, but this is an advantage to the 49ers, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. And he gives opportunities for interceptions. He does it consistently. When you watch his games, there are a couple throws every game almost that the ball is up in the air and grabs for an interception if he doesn't throw it to you outright. So the Niners defense, like they did last game, they're going to have to take advantage of tips and overthrows. Got to get those. I believe Jared Goff, I've heard a couple different stats about this, but I'm pretty sure Jared Goff is 3-7 going against the Niners. The last time the 49ers have faced Jared Goff, he is 0-5 in those last 5 games that the Niners have seen him. When we look at concerns, the biggest concern is the Lions' run game. Their offensive line is very, very good. And they have 2 unbelievable running backs, specifically Jahmyr Gibbs. That guy's a fucking baller, and he's a rookie. He's fast as shit, and he loves to bounce it to the outside. And that is a place where the Packers were able to get some yards when Aaron Jones bounced the ball outside. The Lions offense ranks number 6 in run game offense. They can run the ball. So our defensive line, that's why I said earlier, they have to show up. This is a massive game for them. We cannot allow the Detroit Lions to have consistent running the ball, because if they do, that is going to be a fucking problem. And that is when Jared Goff, similar to how our offense works, that's when QBs start to get hot, when their run game's working. And they have backs that we cannot miss tackles on. That is something that has to be cleaned up, because we will get hurt and gashed for explosive plays if we're not able for our defensive line not to penetrate, stop the run. And then, of course, if we miss tackles, that will lead to some problems. And then something else I noticed from the Green Bay game, the 49ers defense, they need answers to picks and to rubs. Green Bay was very successful. They got that 2-point conversion from it, but the picks and rubs has been a weak point, at least as of last game. And that is something the 49ers will see against Detroit. That is something that they like to do. It's a plays that they like to run pretty consistently throughout the course of a game. So that is what hopefully Wilks is addressing with the team, how to get around those and how to stop it for a short yardage gain. Because again, we will see that. And it was, especially when you go watch the tape of Green Bay, that is something that we didn't do well, that they can do very well with better players. What's funny is I already see over the internet, since this last game, people are already crowning the Detroit Lions. Their coach is getting a shit ton of hype because they're a gritty team. People are acting like it was just a breeze for them to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield. No one seems to mention that. They very well easily, that game could have gone the other way if it wasn't for a few plays, but people are already crowning because the Niners didn't have their best game. Detroit, apparently in a lot of people's eyes, played unbelievable, which they didn't. They struggled with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, by the way, the 49ers fucking smoked. Oh, and also, Detroit, last time they played Green Bay at Detroit, I believe, they lost. So the fact that I see people crowning Detroit because there's such a good story. Oh, the franchise hasn't been in the playoffs since 70 years, 30 years, whatever it is. The Niners players need to come out and dominate this game so we can shut all this shit down. The blue collar Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell, gritty man.
You guys are unbelievable, man.
The Niners are about to have a wake-up call, and the Detroit Lions are going to get fucking destroyed. Just wait. And another key takeaway I noticed from Detroit from their last game is it looks like they've started implementing on the defensive side of the ball, they've started implementing more early down pressures. On first and second down, they've started adding more blitzes to that. And the good thing is that they've shown that on tape. Kyle will scheme for it, but who is one of the best, if not the best quarterbacks going against the blitz? Brock Purdy. So that's just something to keep your eye out. First, second down blitzes coming from Detroit, which they will do, seeing how our team reacts and see if we can get a big pop out of one of those plays. And then, of course, the last component of this that I find interesting, that I'll be keeping my eyes out for, Dan Campbell versus Kyle Shanahan. Dan Campbell is ultra aggressive head coach, goes forward on fourth down a lot, regardless of where they're at in the field. They will do fake punts. And with it being the NFC Championship game, expect the kitchen sink to be in play at this game. Whereas Kyle, historically seen as a more conservative coach, we saw that kind of come into fruition last game against the Packers. It will be interesting to see how the game goes with Dan Campbell being an ultra aggressive coach and Kyle Shanahan being more conservative. But obviously a lot of that will depend on how the game is playing. So I think to wrap this game up here is I think the Niners' biggest opportunity on the offensive side of the ball is going to be in the pass game. They have been pretty good against the run. Their DBs are their weak point on the defensive side of the ball. And there's a lot of recency bias going on right now where we're hearing a lot of people, because based on one performance of Brock Purdy, that all of a sudden he's not a good quarterback. Well, just watch. We're going to be able to slice and dice them, specifically our wide receivers, going against their defensive backs, their secondary. That is where the 49ers opportunity will be, which I would say was the inverse of last game. So be curious to see how Kyle approaches that. And then the final thing is the Lions. I already saw an article this morning trying to build up some narrative talking about they announced the refs this morning. I saw an article of that. Colette Blakeman is the Whitecap official that will be running that. And I saw a lot of things going around on X, aka Twitter, talking about how that ref has fucked them over. In 2019, he picked up a flag, which ultimately they feel caused them to lose the game. I'd have to go back and watch it, but I'm already seeing some eye rolls, throwing up their hands because this Whitecap's going to be officiating the game. Well, the one fun fact about this official, Blakeman, is he has the lowest number of flags thrown this year with only 220 flags and has the most flag pickups. So they throw the flag and they pick it up and say there's no penalty. He has 48 of those this year. So AKA, the refs are going to let the boys play, which is what everybody wants in the playoffs. And that is what's going to happen. And I can't wait to watch. So that's all I have for you guys today. I'm fired up for this upcoming game. It is going to be a good one. The Niners got some things to correct. They'll be back. Don't worry about it. All right, y'all. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, hit me up. See you next time. Thursday.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Ooh, I've been on the flex since flex zone. Neighborhood all in your eardrum.